please. Well, we have an extraordinary person here, and what I have to reveal to you, I spent the time in the green room trying to pry out of her last night. Congratulations, Grand Hotel premiered on ABC TV.
Yes.
And among other things, she was a director, executive producer, you're acting in the series, minor little things. And but I was trying to pry out of her information that could not be revealed, like mystery of who's missing, who did what to whom.
Yeah. Steve watched it, and he was like,
who was lending money to Santiago that the kids didn't know about? I mean, all in the machinations of the maid. It's wrong done to her, but she's about to do wrong to somebody. I mean, it's well worth watching.
Oh, thank you. I gave him a secret, but he's not allowed to tell anybody.
No.
So.
She put a thing on me that if I reveal it, I'm going to evaporate. So, but what is amazing about it is that this is just one of a number of projects that you're involved in, and just going down the list: award-winning actor, producer, director, entrepreneur, a genuine entrepreneur. We'll discuss that. Same thing in philanthropy, activist, author, Eva's Kitchen, and a few months ago, a mother.
1 year ago. He turns one tomorrow. Yeah.
Yay.
Oh my God, it goes so fast, and everybody keeps telling me it goes so fast, and I said, stop saying that, because then it happens, and he just gets older.
Well, you have experiences ahead, and I'll just give you one piece of advice my father gave me when I became a parent. He said, especially as your kids get older, especially the teen years, he said, you know you're a successful parent when you become an embarrassment to your children. Goes with the territory.
I'll remember that.
But then you've got upcoming Dora the Explorer. You're the mother of Dora. You were surprised that the whole world knows about Dora.
I was. As a Hispanic, I thought Dora was like our icon. And when it was announced I was playing Dora's mom, people from all over the world called me, and they're like, "You're Dora's mom," and I didn't know she taught English in other countries. Here she taught us Spanish, but in other countries she's taught English, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. It was also the first project I did as a mom, playing a mom, and I shot the movie when Santi was 8 weeks old, and I was breastfeeding and on set, and it was funny because Dora, it's a live action, it's a real Dora, it's not a cartoon, and she's in the jungle and running around, and there were so many times I would be like, I don't think I would let my daughter play with a snake. Like, all of a sudden all my motherly instincts were different. Like, I was like, she cannot run back into the crumbling temple. And they were like, Eva, she has to save the movie. And I'm like, I just wouldn't allow that. So it was different. It was a different approach.
And then you're doing a pilot episode, executive producer, directing for CW's Glamorous. Hour-long drama with Brooke Shields.
Yeah.
Amazing. Documentaries. You're doing a 24/7 with Universal, a movie there. And then Sylvie, opposite Tessa Thompson. I mean, what aren't you doing? And
I don't sing. I definitely don't sing.
But amazing thing is, and I was surprised to read it, given all the things that you do, I can't believe your mother once told you you're an underachiever because you hadn't gotten your master's degree.
Yeah.
You came from a family of educators. Tell us something a little bit about the environment in which you grew up.
Yeah.
You're an underachiever.
I'm the underachiever. I am the disappointment in my family, let me tell you. I come from, there's 4 girls in my family, no boys. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. My mom has 9 sisters, so I had like 9 aunts. It was just like no men in our family. It was all women. They were all educated, all independent. They also, most of them were teachers. A lot of them were educated. My mother was a special education teacher for 30 years. And I was on Desperate Housewives, and it was the #1 show in the world. And my mom was like, well, you don't have your master's like your sisters. And I was like, okay. And so she guilted me into going back to school, but I actually went back to school to get my master's during Desperate Housewives.
Between takes, you do homework.
I was.
Talk about
And I would ask the crew for help with my homework, like the cameraman. I'm like, what, explain the New Deal to me, you know. And it was a lot of fun. It was all encompassing. And now looking back, I was like, how did I do that? But it was important at the time because crazy enough, when was this? When did I get my master's?
2013.
2013, so 6 years. So 7 years ago. And I wanted to know more about immigration because it was such a hot topic. And I said, I just want to take a class on the history of immigration, specifically for Mexican Americans. And that class grew to another class, which grew to another class, which made me enroll in getting my master's in Chicano studies. And I thought, oh, this is such a pressing issue. And then to be where we are today with that issue is mind-boggling and disappointing, because I really thought like, oh gosh, I've got to hurry up and understand this because I want to help fix it. And here we are. It's just more of a mess.
Well, you bring a unique background. You said, I grew up in Texas, not speaking Spanish, but being Latina. So I was always like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
Explain. And then also you had a great phrase, we didn't cross the border crossed us.
Yeah.
Explain your unique background. You've been around 400 years, your family.
Yeah, I'm a 9th generation American, 13 generations here in the New World. My great-great-grandfather came here from Spain to what is now Mexico, what was New Spain in 1603. And yeah, there's a lot of history. We have a lot of history. And so we were on this soil. We still have the same land today in Texas. And my family was under 5 different flags without ever moving. Just never moved. They were New Spain, then they were Mexico, then they were France for a minute, and then they were Republic of Texas, because, you know, Texas is kind of still a country. And then we were United States of America. So 5 different flags without ever moving, and we still have the same land today. And so that's, my family always says that, which is a lot of Mexican Americans in Texas. We didn't cross the border crossed us. And because of that, there is a bit of an identity crisis sometimes being Mexican American, because we straddle the hyphen every day. People go, are you Mexican? Are you American? I'm like, I'm not 50% Mexican or 50% American. I'm 100% Mexican and 100% American at the same time. And that's okay, right? Like, you should celebrate your culture.
Well, in your early career, you had this strange situation where they said you're not Latina enough to act in Latino roles.
Yeah.
But as you put it, you weren't Jane Smith enough to act in other roles.
Correct. I played a lot of Italian. When I moved to Hollywood, they thought it was Longoria. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. Yeah, and so I remember I went on one Spanish language audition, because I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I speak it now, but I didn't before. It was a teleprompting thing, and I was reading it, and I said, well, I could read Spanish. Surely I can fake it. And I read it, and they go, thank you. You don't speak Spanish, do you? I put the accents in the wrong place, and so, yeah, I was never quite Latin enough.
And growing up, you learned the value of philanthropy, not only from your family, but from one of your sisters, who had learning disabilities. And relate to us the school incident with your sister that really hit philanthropy home for you. It wasn't just a concept, but this was about the real world. Yeah, my oldest sister, Lisa, she's mentally disabled, which is the reason my mom became a special education teacher. My mom would go to school with her every day. And finally, the teacher in the class said, why don't you become a teacher's assistant? So my mom did. And then every day she was in class with my sister, and then they said, why don't you become a teacher? And my mom got her associate's degree and became a teacher. Like, my mom was always with her, and really, she's the oldest, so I was born into her world. You know, it's not like you have a sibling and you're like, oh, why do we have to have this person? This is the only world I knew, was having a sister that was different, and not only a sister, but a whole community. Like, all the kids in the class that my mom taught were different, but for us, they were the same, you know, so we related to that a lot. And I remember my earliest memories were Special Olympics, because we just always volunteered. We volunteered so much when we were a kid, because my sister wasn't allowed to go to the Boys and Girls Club or different activities in the community unless we were with her. So we had to volunteer for my sister to be able to use these programs in the community.
I thought volunteer was a job. Like I was like, I'm going to be a volunteer when I grow up. You know, where do I get paid? And so my mom instilled volunteerism in us very young, but it was my sister who really taught me about compassion and putting yourself in other people's shoes. And so one day, my sister was integrated into a high school, so that means, you know, she's with regular students, normal students, and she's special needs. And so we were always worried about bullying and people might be mean to her. And one day she came home without her jacket, and you know, my mom was like, "What happened to your jacket, Lisa?" And somebody had stolen it off her back. Somebody stole my sister's jacket. And I remember I was like 10, and I was so mad, and I was like, who would steal a special needs kid jacket off their back? And so I said, "Lisa, who stole your jacket?" And she said, "Somebody who must have been cold." She really thought that. There was no ill intention. She was happy that her jacket was of service to somebody, you know, and I just stepped back and I went, that's amazing to have that outlook forever, to always think of other people and put yourself in their shoes. And the other thing I remember my mom, which was a good lesson, was in the morning, we would always be late for school because my sister would tie her shoes, and that was a very hard thing for her to do, to tie her shoes. And we were always late, and I was like, "Mom, can't we just tie her shoes for her?" And my mom said, "Don't do it, let her do it." And I was like, "Can't we just tie?" And every day, and I did not want to be late anymore. And so one day my mom wasn't looking, and I tied my sister's shoes. And she came back, and she got so mad at me. She slapped my hand, and she was like, "Don't ever take away that victory from her. That is her victory." And I was crying when I saw that story, because we have to understand how hard it is sometimes, and when people are different, but you have to allow them to have that victory as well. So she taught me, there's 100 things my sister taught me that I could go on forever, but please continue.
No. About acting, when did you realize that you wanted to do more, as you put it, there was more to just saying lines and then leaving?
Yeah.
When did you realize you wanted to be the creator as well as just memorizing lines and acting?
Well, and Housewives and Desperate Housewives, you know, Desperate Housewives was a decade of my life. It was 10 years of going to work at the same place. And I remember going to work and standing in a mark and saying my lines and then leaving and just not feeling like I was reaching my full potential, using every tool in the toolbox.
When did you decide, doing that you were going to treat this as a sort of a business school? You're going to use this opportunity to learn the business, not just do the job of the acting, but get more out of it?
Yeah, it was actually early in Desperate Housewives. It was maybe the second year, and I was more interested in the business side of our industry, like how are TV shows made, and who are all those people standing behind the monitor, and who hired me, and then who hired them that hired me. And I just was always fascinated with the business side, and decided, you know, I want to know more about this. So I used Desperate Housewives as my film school, and then once I started producing.
So how did you make that breakthrough?
You just do it. You know, people always ask that. They're like, what was the one thing? It wasn't one thing. It was 100 things. I produced a little comedy show at an improv, and then I produced a documentary that we just ran around and shot stuff, and then it's just you build and build and build. When people say, "I want to direct," I go, "Shoot something on your iPhone. Do something." You know, I want to teach. Go teach, you know, your neighbor's kid math. Like whatever it is, just do it. Just go out and do it. And it's, you know, it's like Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours, right? And Outliers. It's like if you just keep doing it long enough, you become an expert at it. And I think that's what happened. Plus, I think women are natural producers, because producing is problem solving, multitasking, dealing with crybabies, you know, it's like babysitting other people, babysitting this argument, putting out that fire. And I go, oh, so this is what women do every day. Women are producers in their natural lives. We are CEOs of our homes, you know, we produce our lives, we produce our children's lives. And so for me, I was like, oh, this is just all of the skills we all have.
Now in Grand Hotel, you consciously put a number of women in positions that normally would go to men. Walk us through that, how you actually made that happen in an industry that may talk the game, but
Yeah.
by golly, it's a long way from practicing it.
So far away. People go, but we're headed in the right direction. Actually, the number of female directors of big franchise films has dropped. Like, we're hiring less women, and so we're not actually making as much progress as we think we are. But it's definitely a male-driven industry, especially if you're a director and a producer. But with Grand Hotel, as I was the producer, as we started to crew up, hiring everybody, which is like 300 people you get to hire. As a producer, I had a say, and I remember the first person we had to hire was a cinematographer, the DP, and the DP is definitely traditionally a male role. And so, the studio sends you Tom, Dick, and Harry, and resumes.
You make that very important point,
Yeah.
that it's out of habit.
It's an unconscious bias. Tom has done this amount of work for us, and Harry's done this amount of work for us. Of course they have a big body of work. You always hire them, yeah, but there are equally qualified women who don't get the same opportunity. And so I said, I want a list of female DPs. And they didn't resist. They go, oh yeah, we didn't think of that. And so they gave me the list of female DPs. I interviewed the female DPs, and not only did we hire the female DP, she was the best person for the job. And that's a unicorn to have a female cinematographer. So we hired her. Then what happens is she ended up hiring women in the camera department, a female camera assistant, a female loader, a female grip, and it trickles down. And then with our directors, we only have so many slots. We had 13 episodes, and of the 13, you hire 13 directors, and I said, we're gonna fill those slots with women first. Women first, they get the slots. We filled up 7 of the slots, and we ran out of women, only because they were working and we couldn't, and that was great that we had a big majority of women. We had a stunt coordinator scene. We needed a stunt coordinator, and they sent me, Tom, Bob, and Dan, and I was like, are there any female stunt coordinators? And they go, oh yeah, we didn't think of that. They send me the list. We hire a female stunt coordinator, a predominantly male job. So when you're in a position to make change, you have to consciously do that with the lens of equity. Because I think right now what happens is it is an unconscious bias. We just hire the people we always used to work with, and we should change that.
This leads to Latino actors. Why are there so few Latino actors in commercials and in films? You made the change with the Grand Hotel, but why now, with supposedly the consciousness raised?
Yeah.
It's so sparse.
We again, same thing, we don't have the pipeline that other communities have. And so, if we go back to the women, women are great storytellers. They're amazing writers and directors that are women. But they haven't done a movie, so we're not going to give them a movie yet. They haven't really written a good script, so we're not going to give them a script. But men get movies all the time, and men can fail all the time and get another movie, and so women get one bite at the apple sometimes. And the same thing for Latinos. There is talent out there. It's just, if you look at resumes, this resume has this many things on it, and this person has only done this many things. And so right now it's about building that pipeline and giving people the chance and the opportunity to have that work experience, so that when they are on equal footing between themselves and a non-minority or a woman and a man, that it's actually, we can judge them on their work equally.
This gets to the Latino community in the United States. It's not recognized that in terms of startups, more startups come from the Latino community than any other group in the United States. Between, for example, 2012 and 2017, the number went from 3.3 million to 4.6 million. Latino wages are rising faster than the national average. It's the largest group in the US. In a few decades, will be well over 100 million. And good thing for the economy, the median age is 10 years less than the national average, and that gives a dynamism for the future.
We're younger. But
I have a different definition of young. That's another subject for another time. But unheralded success story. Now your foundation.
Yeah.
You make the point, again, not known. Latinas open up small businesses at 6 times the national rate. So walk us through what you're doing to help these people turn desire into reality, the ambition into reality.
Yeah,
with the
well, that's what I was
foundation.
going to say. Latinos are the majority of small business the growth in our economy comes from small businesses, and the majority of those people starting small businesses are not only Latinos, they're Latinas. They're the women who are starting small businesses faster than anybody else in our country. And so we found that these women don't have the same access to that opportunity or capital. They don't meet certain qualifications that the normalized banking industry asks of them, or they don't have the business skill, but they have the desire and the ambition and the aspiration to either create a business or grow a business. And so we found there was a big lack of education for Latina entrepreneurs. And so my foundation has given over $6 million in microloans to women who wanted to start a business or grow a business, and who normally wouldn't qualify for your normal bank small business loan. And so that's what my foundation does, is not only give them access to capital, but gives them the business training that they need to manage that capital. And not only that, Latinas pay back the loans at 99%. I mean, it's just amazing.
Well, and you also hit on something very important. You give these budding entrepreneurs, the know-how, bookkeeping, seemingly mundane things to make sure they don't trip on stuff that they shouldn't trip on. They can focus on the creativity.
Bookkeeping is a big one. You know, just how to manage your books. How to manage your books yourself too, because if you can't outsource,
cash flow kills so many businesses. I think
and
they're
if you
doing
can't
well.
outsource that, I'm a small business. I can't outsource that. I can't outsource my taxes either. Teaching them how to navigate that world, because that world is also intimidating, not only to Latinas, to women in general. Is you know, we aren't given the same I think respect when it comes to financial intelligence. You know, oh, don't worry your pretty little head about that. And we encourage women, yes, worry your beautiful head about that, because you should know the inner workings of your business completely. Yeah.
And you're a co-founder of Time's Up, including the Defense Fund, which has taken over, I think, 1,500 cases, almost 2,000 cases.
Yeah.
And yet the progress has been slow.
Yeah.
Do you see a change? Do you think that could happen?
What I think, you know, Time's Up was born from the Me Too movement, but Time's Up became a legal defense fund because we wanted to turn pain into power. And the main message of Time's Up and the main initiative is to give women a safe workplace. Everybody should have a safe workplace. Like, that seems revolutionary, but it's not. Like, how is that not promised to me when I go to work? I don't want to be harassed. I want an equal footing for promotion. I want equal pay. Lily's here, Lily Ledbetter's here. And I think the greatest accomplishment Time's Up has done so far is create global awareness that this issue is global. Right, everybody's talking about it. Women in France were talking about it. We thought it was like our issue, and it's not even a Hollywood issue. It's across all industries. And when we launched Time's Up, we didn't launch it as actresses. We knew our place of privilege when we did that. We launched it with farm workers, with restaurant workers, with hotel workers, with domestic workers. We united this sisterhood that we all shared something in common. We're like, wait, did that happen to you? That happened to you? That happened to me. And I remember being in a room with a lot of women and them having the same experience and being in two totally different industries, but having that same exact experience. That exact thing happened to me. And so creating that global conversation about it is super important. And then the Legal Defense Fund has been doing amazing work so far. You know, we took on the McDonald's case of all the women in McDonald's who were being harassed. You know, these minimum wage workers who really need this job and couldn't get ahead unless some of them were, you know, asked for sexual favors. Some of them were just harassed every day by their boss, and they need the job. They were like, I can't quit. This is my boss. What am I going to do? I need this job. So we took on that case, and we just took on the FBI, the women in the FBI case, which, you know, was another big case.
What role do you see in 2020, both Time's Up and also the Latino Victory Project, which you played a critical role in saving Barack Obama in 2012 when he was in trouble for re-elect? your project was critical in helping them pull out that election. What do you see your role in 2020?
Time's Up role or just my role or?
All of the above.
Our role.
In 30 seconds.
Our role. Well, Time's Up, we're definitely strategizing about including women's issues, specifically on the debate stages. There's very rare, I think there was a study that came out that in the last 30 years or something, 6 questions have been asked about women's issues, and you know, and it's more than equal pay. It's childcare. It's, you know, and a lot of times women think that, oh, this is my issue. I should figure out childcare because that's my problem. That's not your problem. That's a big problem, you know. And so it goes beyond just you know, our health care. You look at what's happening in Alabama, Louisiana. I mean, this Atlanta, Georgia. It's just so many things are happening that are really walking back our rights as women. And it's not about being anti-choice or pro-choice. This is about fundamental human rights and people trying to strip those away little by little by little, and we have to pay attention. And so I think what our role is in the 2020 elections is to pay attention, because I think we don't. I think we kind of get into the two ideologies of red and blue and Republican and Democrat, where we really have to look not only at the general election, but the down ballots, because that's where all of these laws are getting passed, is in the states. You know, the state legislatures are doing some really damaging things, and those are the people we don't really pay attention to. You see a sign somewhere in your neighborhood on a lawn, well, this is New York, there's no lawns, but you know, you just, we have to pay attention, and it's troubling times for women when it comes to government. We also need more women in politics. We need more women and more women to have a seat at the table. I don't want a table of men deciding my reproductive rights. Like, you have no idea what that entails.
Your extraordinary energy as an entrepreneur in the clothing line, you made it very clear from the beginning you weren't going to lend your name out. And a couple of things stand out. First, you said from the age of 7 you were sewing. You sometimes spend 8 hours sewing a dress. So you had you said, I'm obsessed with the construction of garments and textiles and textures. My style motto is comfort. But you also recognized you had a lot to learn about the business. So you're going to get into it. You had a real feel for it, but you spent 5 years learning about the business. Quickly walk us through, because it's very, very instructive on.
Well, it's so interesting, because I think all industries are being disrupted by technology, and so online and e-commerce. And so when I started my clothing line, I was like, I love to sew, and you know, that's just not enough. When people go, I'm really passionate about makeup, I'm going to start a makeup line. Well, you need more than a passion for it. You need to really educate yourself and understand the business, and that's how I approached my clothing line. That's how I approached my restaurant business when I had 2 restaurants. I had a cookbook, and I loved to cook. And when we opened my restaurant, which was, you know, 10 years open in Hollywood, it was that. I always approach it with, like, is this a smart business decision? It can be my passion, but it's got to make financial sense.
You also learned that it's not always going to work out, but entrepreneurs know those things happen.
Yeah.
It's like a baseball player knows you're not going to always hit a home run. So in closing, how do you reasonably manage so many projects? You once said, I can do anything, but I can't do everything. So how do you choose what you do, and then how do you manage the time with all of these projects out there? And you don't let.
Yeah, I micromanage. You're gonna say I micromanage?
Is the furniture right on that set? You don't walk away from it.
I do. You know, I am older, so up until now, everybody goes, "How do you do everything?" And I realized I don't have children. Right? Like, I can do anything because I didn't have children. Now I have a baby, and now things have significantly shifted. So living that experience of, you know, your priorities are no longer yourself has been interesting to navigate. I'm lucky that I have an industry in which my child can go to work with me. He's by my side, he's behind the monitor, he's in my office, he's on set, he's just always with me, where we don't all have that job. You know, you can't take your child to work. So far it's working great. But I think as he gets older, he might have an opinion on set. And so for me, I realized that's what it was. I didn't have, I got to think purely about myself and my goals, but it is about hiring smarter people than me. And so I usually hire somebody else who knows it better, and I pay them to do it, and I'm a sponge and I learn from them. Or I surround myself with great thinkers. One thing I learned from the Obama campaign, when we were on the campaign trail in 2012, his campaign was so amazingly, the way it was run was just like a great machine. Lily and I were talking about it, because he was about best idea wins. What's your idea? How do we reach the youth? How do I reach women? What do you think about women? And it was best idea wins. And that's how I approach my businesses is, okay, what do you guys think? How can we best sell these clothes? Who do we want to sell these clothes to? What's the message of the clothing? And in my little bubble of businesses, it is that. It's innovation comes from many places, and I don't think a dictatorship sometimes is great. I love the democracy of best idea wins.
So what course of action would you urge this audience? You've been an activist. What advice what takeaways would you leave with them?
In where? What?
In terms of pushing the ball forward, in terms of overcoming the barriers that still exist, which you pointed out are still very real.
Yeah, we have a lot of obstacles, but by the way, we know the obstacles, and so that's what I think a lot of times we focus on the obstacles that women face in any industry, and instead we should focus on the common denominators of successful women. What did they do right? And let's replicate that. And so that's what I did with my foundation when I wanted to do help Latinas with education entrepreneurship. I said, I know the barriers. I don't want to do a study on barriers of Latinas into why aren't they getting into college. We know why they're not getting into college. It's socioeconomic status, it's gender, it's language, it's a lot of things. But the people who did break through and did get out, the rose in the concrete, why was she successful? And for the foundation, it was parental engagement was the #1 common denominator in successful kids. They had an engaged parent that said college, college, college over and over and over, that it was instilled in them. The other thing was after school programs. And so keeping kids at school as long as possible. It didn't matter what, could it be band or cheerleading? It could be science club or math club. Just keeping the children at school longer created more interest in other subjects. And so those were two surprising things that we didn't think about in our foundation in my approach. And so that's what I say to you is, instead of focusing on the barriers women face, look at somebody very, very successful and go, what are you doing right? And replicate that.
You once said, I think it was to Knox College, you said, so to me, America is the greatest country in the world because it's an idea that all of us have the opportunity to pursue any vision that we set for our lives. But of course, we have a lot of work to do in achieving the ideal of the American dream and what that means. Well, thanks to you, Eva, and your example, someday that ideal will be achieved. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that was so lovely.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you. Thank you.